Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Attack on Productions. Fluff here, coming back at you with another deck profile. Earlier in the week, you saw that I got to play Majin Vegeta this weekend. There were a couple things, as I said, that I wanted to change before I actually got a deck profile. So this is the change deck. I don't know if there's anything particularly special or groundbreaking within this deck, but hopefully you like it. Give it a shot. It's really fun if you like to make your opponent make bad choices on like turn 2. So looking at the leader, front side, Vegeta and Babidi. Front side, it's got Overlord, so bottom servant card, draw one. Then it's got an activate main, take a life, added to hand, draw a card. Leader gets 5,000 double strike for the turn. So super aggressive. Once you're at 5 life, you get to restand 2 of your energy, flip the leader over. On the backside, we have Overlord again. So got that. This time, instead of on attack, it's activate main. We get to take a life, draw a card, gains 5,000 double strike. Does telegraph what we're attempting to do with the leader, but it is extremely good. It'll make your opponent burn a negate on this to not take the double strike. And then the other activate main for 1 green energy, we get to reveal the top or the bottom card of our deck. If it's a card with servant, energy cost 3 or less, we get to play it. So we've run a couple targets for that. You can set that up with super combos or the Overlord skill on the leader. So plenty of ways to do that. We shouldn't be guessing and blind attempting to resolve that effect much. So that's the leader. Main card of the deck is going to be the Majin Quickening. This is going to be what's going to get us into the main engine of our deck. It's pretty simple. 1 energy cost field card. Anytime that you would take a life to your hand or life to drop area, you get to place a card under this. So double strike will put 2 cards under this from the top of your deck. Once you have 4, you get to place this into the drop area with all the cards underneath it to the drop area. Then you get to search your deck or drop area for a Majin Buu with an energy cost of 3 or less from your deck or drop area and play it. This is basically going to allow us to ramp up for no energy into the win condition of our deck. So 3 of these, because later in the game, or if you have to take a couple double strikes early, or you have to take damage before you can board this, it's dead and doesn't really do anything for you. You're only going to resolve 1. So we only need to see it once. We only run the multiple copies to make sure that we see it. The other way that we make sure to see it is the 1 drop. Babidi Evil Mind Snatcher. Basically, when you play this Babidi, you get to just activate a Majin Quickening from your deck. If you already have a Majin Quickening on the field, then you also get to look at the top 7 cards, add up to 1 Vegeta with Servant skill among them and add it to your hand. So this is a great way to get our servants into hand so we can load them for the leader's effect. Another way, and probably the most optimal way, though maybe one of the more dead ways to play the Majin Quickening, is with Hachiek, Vengeful Agent of Destruction. So for 1 energy, you get to discard this guy, search out a Babidi in your deck, play it. So we'll be able to, for 1 energy, discard the Hachiek, play the Babidi, which will play the Majin Quickening. So here you see we've got 7, 8, 9 ways to put Majin Quickening out on the field. We're basically going to hard search for one of these cards in our opening hand. You have to see the Majin Quickening turn 1. If you don't, it's an uphill, dangerous battle the rest of the game. So really important that we see these. So I'm going to leave a copy of Majin Quickening here just for reference. Then to kind of activate the Majin Quickening and apply early pressure, we do run 3 of the Dodoria the Cold-Blooded. This is a typical 1-drop take a life on attack, plus 10,000 double strike, so it's a 15,000 double strike. We just use these to hit the Majin Quickening and apply early pressure, make our opponent waste negates early or waste combo power. So we play 3 of those. Then our first servant target, and probably one of the most important that we play, is Prince of Destruction Vegeta, Evil Awakened. Does have Servant, so it gains the 10,000. And then auto, if your leader is a green Vegeta card, you can add 1 card from your life to your hand. When this card is played, it gains double strike. So this is going to be very similar to the Dodoria, except for it gets its effect on play, and then it also synergizes with the leader's both Overlord skill and its ability to play itself from the bottom of the deck if we need to do that. Our other servant target, which is a better target, I think, is the Prince of Destruction Vegeta Life and Death. This inherently has double strike. It has servant, and then auto once per turn. When your opponent activates a counter card, we get to restand this card. So if we can board this guy early in or go off turn, anytime your opponent would counter, the first time that they counter after swinging with this card, he gets to restand, and it's another 30,000 double strike, which is just crazy. And plus, if we play him, we can bottom him and then play him back up. So if he's played on the field and you swing with him, get the restand, swing with him again, Overlord, get a draw off that, then pay 1 green energy and play it again. You basically get to swing and counter restand again if you need to. So it's incredibly oppressive. This is way better than the promo, although the promo is extremely synergistic with the deck as well. So we do run 3 of those because paying 3 energy for them is not the friendliest thing ever in this deck. Then moving on to the Majin Quickening, once we have our 4, we have a couple targets that we can search for in the deck. The first one is Majin Buu Ghastly Energy. This is a barrier. When you play this card, you remove 1 marker from one of your opponent's unisons. It's actually really good if your opponent is sitting on something like a marker with 2 and you want to be able to turn off the counterplays. You can use this to turn off the counterplays. Another target that we run is Majin Buu Malice Distilled. So this is probably one of the more fragile targets because it doesn't have barrier or deflect and can sometimes be dangerous to play. Although when we play him, we get to straight search the 7 drop from our deck and add it to hand. The third target is going to be Majin Buu Looking for a Fight. This is a 3-drop deflect, so it's not respondable to counter, or not affected by counterplays unless it's the 7-drop Frieza in green. And then auto, when this card is played, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost of 4 or less and KO it. So this could get rid of a blocker that's going to be on the field to potentially stop us from being able to continue our plays. This is probably the most sought after target to play off the Majin Quickening just because we get the pop with it, which might remove a pesky blocker or a problem card for us. So just the 4 targets, you don't really need to see more than that. Either you end up putting them under the Majin Quickening, or you end up being able to find them in deck unless they're locked in life. Either way, we do have options, and I would use the Majin Buu Malice Distilled if you know your opponent doesn't have a counterplay that they can use to rip this out, especially if you need to get the 7-drop in hand. So we do play those. Then once we get our Majin Buu on the field, we run the 3-star Parasitic, or the 3-star ball Parasitic Darkness. Basically, once we have a Buu on the field, we can attack with the Buu, play the 3-star Parasitic Ball on top of it, restand it, and play a Buu with Zeno in its character name with an energy cost of 5 or less. I know that the recent Ultimate deck gave us a Buu that's an energy cost of 4, but it gets incredibly clunky because it doesn't fulfill the rest of our chain. So the Buu that we're going to play off this is the 5-drop Majin Buu Dark Parasite Deflect. So again, your opponent can't counterplay it. His effect doesn't really matter because we don't run a unison in this deck, and we don't really play him for his effect. He's just a stepping stone. Usually you're not going to play him and swing with him. You're just going to play with him and EX Evolve for 1 green energy into Majin Buu Royal Absorption. I play 3 of those as well. This guy's double strike, dual attack, 25,000. When this card is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill, play up to 1 green Majin Buu card with an energy cost of 3 from your drop area, then add up to 1 dark Dragon Ball from your drop area to your hand. So it sets up another play if they happen to resolve him. So if he gets resolved, we get to play a 3-drop Buu from our drop area, which we should have because there was a Buu under the earlier one. Then we get to play the ball on it again, get another 5-drop, and if we have another 7-drop, we can just go into another 7-drop. So it reestablishes the chain for no energy if your opponent solves it. Next, because we do run the 7-drop green, we do run the Brawly Ultimate Agent of Destruction. It's always worth a look if you're running a deck that is primarily green, that plays out high body green cards, specifically 7 or more, because if it's ever removed from the field, we get to play this Brawly out. which is really good at the cost of discarding our hand. But if we're at 1 or less life, which is really easy to achieve with this leader, when it swings, your opponent has to dump their entire hand, and it basically puts them in range to take 4 damage in that turn. So we don't want our opponent to activate that. We want it done on our terms. So to do it on our terms, we do run 3 of the Belmod Double Devastation. This guy, basically, you take 3 of your battle cards, put it in your drop area, and then you get to play out the Brawly when the 7-drop leaves the field. So this gives us a blocker if we need for the defense. Plus, it KOs a battle card, so if they've established a blocker that we've not been able to deal with, the opponent hasn't used, or they've got a battle card that is otherwise disrupting us or might be combo power, the Belmod can pop that. Because it's a combo aggro deck, we do need to be able to find specific pieces, and we want to be able to dig through our deck as much as possible. So I do run 3 of the Bardock Awakened Instincts. It's Overwhelm 4, 20,000, draw 2 cards, and then place 1 card from your hand into the drop area. So this is just to find pieces, plus it's a great way to set up the number of cards on the field required for Belmod. So 3 of those. The Bardock, Belmod, and Brawly are probably my spice of the deck. But anytime that you have a crazy aggro-centric green deck that, you know, can utilize the Dark Brawly, it's always worth an investigation if you can run the Dark Brawly over trying to establish Xenocell, in my opinion. So just give it a thought. It's really good, and it catches people off guard. They don't expect it, and it throws them off their game. Lastly, we do run 4 super combos, the Great Saiyaman, just because we want to be able to dig through our decks. So once we're at 4 or less life, we'll get to draw 2, or we get to bottom a card, which we can use to bottom one of our servants. So we get a lot of value off of that cost to draw 2 cards. So we want to run 4 of these. We want to see as many as possible over the course of a match, and just to get the draws and just to keep our engine and all the potentially needed combo pieces in hand. And then, because it is kind of a fragile deck, we do have to run a little bit of defense in case our opponent stalls us out. Topo, or Dormant Potential Unleashed, or Flying Nimbus. So we do run 3 Shocking Death Ball, 3 Dormant Potential Unleashed. We do hard cast the Dormant for 1 energy, which isn't too bad. A Dormant is not likely to save us against something like, say, Turles, because Turles is going to just double strike through the Dormants anyway. But if we're running, against Red Brawly on turn 2, if we can bait them into a Dormant Potential, Brawly doesn't get their super aggro turn 2, and we have a chance of killing them on the crackback. So that, by my count, is 50 cards for the Majin Vegeta deck. This deck's a lot of fun. It's incredibly potent. If your opponent's not ready for it and they're not suspecting, 10 or 11 or 12 attacks, with a great majority of those being double strike, you can easily edge out victory against your opponent. If you go on turn 3, you're pretty much guaranteeing that if you can drop the Brawly, you're going to empty their hand, especially if you can drop the Brawly and continue playing after that. Like if you can drop the Brawly before you swing with your leader, or before you activate Overlord to bottom one of the cards on the field, it just gets super, super, super aggressive, and your opponent just has a lot of trouble comboing through that and having enough to do. Now, of course, if they put a floodgate against you like a Topo, we don't want that unless we're about to drop the Brawly. And even then, Topo is one of the best solutions against the Brawly, because if you don't have a hand, you can't attack because it's a cost to discard. So anyway, that is my 50 card Majin Vegeta deck. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, fetish stuff. I really like this card, or this deck rather. It's super degenerate, though it's not hand control, so hopefully that doesn't trigger a few people. It is really degenerate in the fact that if you see the right hand, you basically just win. It's a glass cannon, and it can draw junk where you just have nothing playable, and every inefficient line of play is available to you. So that probably keeps it from being super, super relevant in the meta, and probably every top with this, and nothing against anyone who's majoritarily playing this deck, but most tops are probably based on luck for seeing the correct combo pieces, because in my testing, this deck goes off like 60-70% of the time. So you could get lucky over the course of a over an event going off every single game. But if you're playing a 4 or 5 round tournament, then there's a chance that one of those you're going to brick really hard. But the deck is super good. It's super fun. Give it a shot. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you would advise any other text to this, what would you advise? I took the Unisons out because they weren't combo cards. And most of the time, if I played a Unison, I was dying anyway. So I just didn't want to play those. I wanted to see the majority of my combo pieces more frequently. So thank you guys very much. As always, read your cards, know your plays. Fluff out.